You are an amazing woman, but not everyone is designed to see your value. That's just the reality of life. You know, everyone's not going to like you, and that's fine because you're not going to like everyone. And so with that, we have to be aware when things are just not in alignment. Things are just not there. The interest isn't strong enough for us to be able to move forward or make something happen here. Now, before I explain to you what those signs are to help make things clearer for you, I want you to understand, again, don't internalize when the interest isn't there. Don't internalize when you are not a match with someone. The reality is that you can meet 100 men tomorrow and 99 of them ain't for you. Hell, all 100 may not be for you. You may have to go past 100 before you meet the right person. That's just the way life is set up. We're not going to find 100 matches who we can share our lives with and build an amazing relationship with. So when we start to shift the way that we look at things, we start to be less discouraged when things don't work out. All right? But let's not dwell on that. Let's get to these signs. Now, here's the thing I want to mention. I'm going to name some stuff or break down some things in the stage of you even trying to, like a guy approaching you or you wanting a guy to approach you, you know, seeing someone in passing, as well as some things to be mindful of after maybe numbers are exchanged and you guys are talking to each other. All right? Because I have to say this real quick. I'm amazed sometimes at how some women are not able to take a hint. Like, I thought men were bad with hints, okay? But I've seen some situations where I was like, does she not realize this man has no interest? Like, he's clearly not showing he's feeling her at all. But it's almost like sometimes as for some women, they get locked into what they want so much, they become blind to the signs saying it's just not there, all right? So, number one, when he avoids eye contact. So, let me first say this. There are tons of shy men out there. There are tons of men who are not confident enough to look you in the eye, right? However, we could argue, all right, if he's not even confident to look at you, if you look at him, what's your interest level with a guy like that? What's your interest level with a guy who doesn't at least have that enough confidence for an exchange of looks, all right? But typically, for most men, and notice I said when you look at him, because yes, part of this equation, for him to avoid eye contact, you have to look at him, all right? Like, he can't avoid what you're not looking at. So if you're avoiding, if you're trying to act like you don't see him, which I see happen all the time. Let me tell you, one thing that's really funny about women, y'all literally can walk down the street, see a man coming that you think is so fine, and you're actually going crazy over in your head, and you will act like he does not exist. You will not look at him. You will not make any reaction, nothing, okay? Which is unfair and needs to change. I want to encourage you to at least show some kind of signal that you have interest. But let's just go with the idea that you are looking at him. You have given him some looks. And you know when someone's not looking back, especially if they've already looked once and now they're not trying to look again. Like, this is him trying to, in many cases, say to you, like, he's hoping this kind of goes away. Like, the reality is that, and I'm going to probably mention this a few times in this video, men struggle with rejecting women. That's something you have to remember. It's actually extremely important because this contributes to why there's so much confusion when a man's not interested. Because many of you will say, well, why won't he just say that? Men struggle with that because men are not typically in the position to reject. They're typically in a position to be rejected, all right? Men are used to having to be the one to quote unquote pursue whatever the case may be. And so with that, it's the woman who now gets to decide if she wants to accept this or not. So when now attention comes his way, and because a lot of men are going to view the woman as, well, she may be very sensitive, I don't want to hurt her feelings, all these things, he struggles to navigate those moments. So he may find other subtle ways of trying to say, I'm not really interested without flat out saying it. Now, of course, I would love for everybody to be more clear and transparent, but I'm explaining to you the reality of what happens, all right? So back to the point, avoiding eye contact. If he's not trying to look at you when you're looking at him, that's a problem. And you could actually use that as a sign, even if you guys started talking, went on a date. Like if you're on a date with a guy and he won't look at you, that's a red flag. Again, at the very least, I never want us to jump right to the conclusion of he's not interested, at least in a case where you guys have exchanged numbers and gone on a date, but it is a red flag. And it needs to be addressed because something's off or he's just not feeling you like that. All right, now the second sign he's not that into you is when he does not, how shall I say, take advantage of your social media advances. So now this won't apply to all of you because many of you are against sliding in the DMs, all right? Many of you may have your pride telling you that you can't be over there liking pictures and showing him signals. But let's talk about this for a second. But before I get into the deeper examples of showing that he's not that interested when it comes to social media, let's talk about the liking the photos. Because there are some women who you think, oh, my way of showing interest is I'm gonna like a bunch of his photos, right? If he is a man who doesn't have much activity on his, let's use Instagram, on his Instagram, he may catch those likes, right? And then he can say, oh, okay, well, clearly she's interested. So now if I'm interested, I'll respond. But if he has a lot of activity on his Instagram, he may not even see all that. So if you're thinking that liking his pictures is a guaranteed signal, it's not. It's not. Because, even if he doesn't get a lot of activity, he just may not be on his social media like that. When I say like that, as far as checking his likes. Someone can be active on social media, but they're not going into all the analytics and checking this, checking that. So he may not know, all right? So the next level up from that is you commenting on his stuff. This again goes towards, all right, there's a greater chance he will catch you if you are commenting on his posts. And again, if you are commenting on a man's post who doesn't have a lot of activity and comments, then he's more likely to see what you're doing. If he has a lot more activity, there's a very good chance he's just not gonna catch it, all right? So I've seen a lot of women swear they shot their shot. No, you really didn't. Like, you shot it at the wrong basket. Like, he didn't even know you were on the court, all right? Like, you gotta really be mindful of what are you doing on social media to try to present your interest. Now, let's take it up another notch. Sliding in the DMs. So, sliding in the DMs, of course, the most direct way you can go. And again, for those who don't know what a DM is, because some don't know, that's direct messaging. That's a personal message that you're sending to a person privately, okay? And this is the more in your face, this is what it is, I have interest. I still have to now give you a correction first. Please understand that simply, when you DM him, what you say can play, like a lot of men don't want to jump to conclusions on whether you're interested or not. But I do believe that if you say something and he's interested in you, he will probably run with it, all right? So you want to try to be a little more clear as possible, but I think just DMing him at all will open the door if he's generally interested and able to act on that interest. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But if you sent this man a DM, he done read your DM, and he don't respond, or his response is dry as hell, okay? I think you should take that as a sign that there's no interest there. And again, some of y'all may say, well, that's obvious. I've seen people's DMs. I've seen scenarios where y'all may think it's the men being persistent. I've seen a lot of persistent women, okay, in men's DMs, not taking the hint, okay? So again, as a woman, you have to remember, whether it's DM, whether it's in person, and again, we'll elaborate more as the video goes along, you should not have to push hard to get a man to want to be interested or talk to you. I'm not against presenting your interest. I encourage it. However, once you've presented it, if he don't act on it, that's it. That's enough. That's the farthest I'm gonna tell you to go, because now it goes back to men struggle to reject. There are some situations that, yes, if you persist, he may give in, but he's not giving in because he's interested. He's giving in because he's feeling sorry for you. He's giving in because he doesn't know how else to handle it. Or he's giving in thinking, well, maybe I'll sleep with her and just, we'll see what happens. Like, if there's real interest, it won't mean you having to force it. All right? So once you see that you're going to that level with it, stop yourself. It's not worth it. All right, so let's move things along. Here's another sign he's not that into you, and we're still kind of in the, let's say you're meeting someone for the first time, and this again could apply to maybe the first date or the first interaction that you guys have crossing paths. And that's when you feel like his energy is off, he's disconnected, he's not even flirting with you, all right? So this is where, as a woman, you've got to tap into that intuition. You got to tap into your strength where you know when you're picking up on something. Again, I think a lot of women get themselves in trouble because when they see something that they want, they sometimes become blind to everything else that's going on, all right? I've said it many times. I say, women know connection better than men. They understand it better than men. However, when women see what they want and they decided this is what I want to have, it's like connection goes out the window. They ignore the fact that that's not there. They ignore the fact that maybe the chemistry ain't perfect, but she latches on to whatever is good enough to believe I can make this work because I want this, all right? And sometimes that desire, that want is based off the fantasy that she's projecting, that she's created in her head about this man, because she doesn't truly even know the man. She just knows what has been presented to her on the surface. She knows what she may have assumed, maybe what she heard, but she hasn't sat down and really gotten to know the man deeply before coming to this conclusion. But anyways, let's back it up. Because of becoming blind to it, you're ignoring the fact that he just seems standoffish. He seems not engaging. He doesn't even seem to flirt. And that's a big one. If you are in a man's presence and you flirt with him, again, it's always easier to expose someone in any area, and lack of interest is that one of those areas, when you put yourself out there. So essentially, when you flirt, him not flirting back, well, because it's one thing to say, well, he didn't flirt with me, but you ain't give him nothing to work with, right? But if you're over there, you're complimenting him, oh, you look good today, or you smell nice, or whatever, and he don't flirt back at all, no. It's like, no, and I'm not saying, listen, some men aren't the greatest flirters, but if they can't flirt back, they're still gonna, if there's interest, they're gonna still use that to engage. They're gonna still use that to push things along. The only reasons why they wouldn't is, again, no interest, or they cannot act upon that interest. But you've got to be aware when the energy is off, when this man is disconnected. Men do not act like that with a woman they're interested in. Consider this. When a man meets a woman, especially if the woman has positioned herself to be able to make it easy for the man to approach her, to engage with this man in conversation, if he's interested, that's going to excite the man. The energy is going to be good because he's like, oh man, like look at this beautiful woman talking to me. Oh man, this is my lucky day. Like that energy is going to be very different than he seems like he's ready for the conversation to end. You know what I'm saying? And we can sit there and say, well, he's having a bad day. Let me tell you something. Most days ain't bad enough for a man not to be happy that a woman that he wants is talking to him, all right? I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying when the interest is high, if anything, the experience of the woman you want talking to you and a chance to not get to know her or move things forward, that can make your bad day a good day. That can change everything. So it's not likely for him to stay in this funky mood when he has this amazing opportunity in front of him if the interest is really there. All right, so before we move on to the next one, let me mention this. My video guy actually brought this up. He said he found that there's a study that shows that some men can become cognitively impaired when speaking to an attractive woman. And this is true. I'm not going to sit there and deny that. And so for that reason, understand there's always exceptions to the rule, all right? And I do believe there are exceptions like this that exist. But here is my theory and my belief. He becomes cognitively impaired in that moment because he's nervous, anxiety, it caught him off guard. He was not mentally ready for this. If he is interested in you, so even if nothing materializes in that moment, if he is interested, he's gonna come back around because now he knows the door is open, all right? So I would encourage you as a woman, if it doesn't work out in that first instance or interaction, I am not telling you to shut the door on this man forever. I'm saying don't force the issue. You don't need to do anything more than what you did, all right? But if he's real or he's genuinely interested, he'll come back around. Just now allow that situation to blossom as it possibly could. And that's it. That's all you have to do. But the seed has been planted. So at that point, it's on him. But yes, it is possible for men to get nervous, for men to clam up, don't know how to handle it, and in that moment, show you something opposite of what their real interest is. All right, so we got another sign. And again, we're still a little bit on you're first getting to know or engage with this man. And the other sign is he doesn't ask for your number or offer his. Now, let me start by saying this. Some of y'all may not like it, but I'm just going to say it anyway. You know I love y'all. I do think, remember I said earlier, a woman should not force the issue and try to push things along. The furthest I would ever encourage a woman to go when she crosses paths with a man is to give her number. I know some of y'all just cringed. Some of y'all are talking about, hell no. Hear me out. Hear me out. Because to me, again, some men can become so dumb in the moment. We just talked about it, cognitively impaired in the moment, that they may not even be able to process she's actually interested in me. Not to mention that sometimes you as women aren't being as clear as you think you are, all right? You think your hints are obvious, they're not that obvious. So he doesn't know this is just a friendly interaction or not, right? So with all that considered, I think there's nothing wrong if you say to a man, here's my number. If you're interested, give me a call. Because at that point, it still puts the ball in his court. He still has to act on it. And even with the concern of men not knowing how to reject women, it's easier for that man, if he's not interested, to just not call you. All right? So he's not, the chances of him not being interested, but hitting you up anyway, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm saying it decreases that type of thing. All right? It's less likely. But again, it's just one of the surefire ways of you saying, okay, I did everything I could do. He knows I'm interested. It's on him. And now he will still have to make some kind of initiative to push things along. However, I just want to get that out the way. Aside from that, if you are engaging with a man and you can confidently say, let's just say you've been flirting with him, you're complimenting him, all of that, and this man makes no effort to ask for your number or even give his number, then yes, I think that is another sign of lack of interest. He's not that into you. And here's another thing I have to clarify about the he's not that into you, all right? Understand that a guy could like you and not be that into you. A guy may have a level of interest to want to kick it with you, but not be that into you. So understand that there's levels to this from the standpoint of there's men who just have no interest whatsoever. They don't want to push this along whatsoever. There's some men who will engage to a certain degree, but these signs I've mentioned, such as, let's say, for example, he takes your number. Let's say he asks for your number. You guys talk on the phone, but the conversation, his energy is off. It's very disconnected. That may be a good sign of, okay, he's interested, but he's not that into you. You see what I'm saying? It's, if your desire is for something serious, he's not really the guy that has a level of interest that can push things to that level. But going back to the point, him not asking or offering a number, yeah, typically that's not a good sign. And that's just, his interest isn't strong enough. All right, so real quick, here's your chance to join my special coaching program where you can have your personal questions answered by me twice a month. You'll get access to modules on healing, on tapping into your feminine energy, hearing God more clearly, finding your purpose, meeting more relationship-minded, quality men, all that and more when you click on receivingmyblessings.com. The link is in the description or in the comment section. It's going to be an amazing experience. It's already helping thousands of women. I would love for you to be a part of it. So again, go to receivingmyblessings.com and let's make it happen. All right, so moving things along. This is kind of piggybacking on the last point we made. Well, the last thing I mentioned. Essentially, another sign that he's not that into you is when the conversations are very shallow, and he doesn't really dive into who you are as a person. So this is now, clearly we've moved past the whole first engaging phase. Numbers have been exchanged. Now you guys are talking, all right? And as I mentioned earlier, some guys may like you, have a level of interest, but they're not that into you, all right? They're not trying to take it that far. And one of the clearest ways to see that is, how are his conversations with you? Now, granted, there are a lot of men who don't know how to have good conversation, all right? But that's very different from a man who's not even asking questions about you, who the conversation is very on the surface. It's not much, or even just, it's very short. It's constantly very short. That, again, is usually that's saying to you that he probably wants something either more casual or he's not really feeling this. But again, as I mentioned earlier, he does not know how to cut the whole thing off. It's a messed up situation, but it happens a lot. And for those of you who may feel like, well, why can't you just tell these men to stop acting like this? Here's what I want you to understand about any video I make that breaks down these different topics and situations. I do have a channel for men. I do encourage men in different ways. But in this world, you're still gonna face bad men. You're still gonna face men who are horrible communicators. You're still gonna face men who don't handle things in the best way. You can't win by hoping that men in general will all get their act together. You win by learning how you navigate these situations, how you can make better decisions, how you can see things more clearly. So these videos are to empower you to get the results that you need, and by focusing on the things that you can control. Because again, I could get 1 million men tomorrow to learn how to be honest with women, tell them when they're not interested, not drag things along, all that kind of stuff. And there's still gonna be hundreds of other million men who didn't get the memo. Like it is what it is. And so don't look at it from that perspective. But yes, look at the conversation, evaluate it. But then also, I feel the need to mention this, make sure you're not the one who's being shallow in the conversation. Make sure you're asking him about himself as well. There's a lot of scenarios where I've seen with the woman having the mindset of, well, he's supposed to pursue me. It's like she's forgetting her role in getting to know him as well. She's forgetting her role in asking questions and diving deeper and taking a deeper interest in who he is. It's more so like, well, I'm waiting for you to ask me questions. I'm waiting for you to show me that you want to learn more about me. No, it's a two-way street. You know what I'm saying? And you have to be mindful of that if you're gonna have a successful situation. But outside of that, yeah, that dude's just not into you. All right, so now next on the list, a sign that he's not that into you is that he doesn't initiate seeing you. So again, a lot of situations involve men who are lukewarm about the woman. And some may argue, well, the lukewarm is because, well, I don't know her yet, and I don't know how interested I really am. And that's a fair point to a certain extent, but the reality is that a man who is excited and really into getting to know a woman and has the potential of this being serious, at the very least, there's potential this can be serious, is gonna have a level of energy and excitement about trying to, again, move things along and engage in discussions and especially see the woman. Now, here's the thing. Even the man who don't like you that much typically is gonna wanna see you, because even that guy may wanna have sex, may wanna, engage in other activities. So most men, regardless of the level of interest they have, are going to initiate trying to see you, which is why when he doesn't, it's one of the clearest signs he's not that into you. Because it's like, what other reason do you have? Again, some may say, well, he's very busy. And as a busy man myself, I get it. However, I also know that this is where, again, and I hope this is not confusing some of y'all, but this is, again, going back to the difference between he could like you, but it's not that serious. He's not that into you, all right? The busy man, we always say people make time for what they want. And to a certain extent, that's true. And I do believe that, yes, but some men and some people, men and women, have less available time to give. But to not want to see someone, not initiate seeing someone, speaks to some kind of disconnect. Now, I feel this, I need to mention this real quick, because sometimes there are some men who are conflicted about, it still goes back to the point that they're not that interested. But there's a conflict of, I like this woman, I want to continue seeing this woman, but I also know that I can't give this woman what she really wants. That the man is fully aware that this woman wants something deeper, more serious. He can't give it. So what some men will do is they will ration out how much we engage with each other. It's kind of a way to keep the emotions at bay. Keep her from falling too deeply, if that can even be completely controlled. But that's what he's trying to manage to do. And not let this get too serious, but give enough or engage enough to where we can still see each other here and there. You know what I'm saying? Hoping that maybe this can get to a point where eventually she'll just be okay with, we're cool, we can kick it, but I know I'm not expecting anything more out of him from this situation. Either way, still speaks to the same root problem. The interest isn't deep enough, or, as we'll talk about in a second, he cannot act on the interest. All right, and now the last one before I mention, you can call it a bonus or an extra message, but let's get to this last point first, is that he doesn't allow you into his world. That's something that you've heard me say in many videos if you watch my other videos. But bottom line is, I always say, when a man is not serious about you, when a man's not that into you, when a man is trying to be casual, most men, because there's always exceptions to every rule, but most men are trying to not allow you to get too deep into their world. Whether that be his friends won't meet you, his family won't know anything about you, whether that be even going out and being seen with you, whether that be not talking to you about the different things he has going on in his life. There is a very significant separation between his world and you, all right? And that should tell you right there. And the reason why I say that should tell you right there is because I've seen so many women where they're not grasping that. They're not accepting that reality. They see the disconnect. They see the detachment, but it's like you're trying to rationalize why he would do this, but maybe he just needs time. Maybe he'll come around. And it's like, no. And again, I'm never going to say never, but in the vast majority of cases, you don't see a man go from keeping this woman so detached from his world while he continues to deal with her, and then all of a sudden immerses her into his world, unless it's just to appease the woman. Or it's like, yeah, maybe he decided finally that I'm going to give this a shot, but that still means he's not that into you. A man coming to the conclusion that, well, since you're around and maybe I'm ready to settle down, so I'm going to pick you, that's not a good position to be in as a woman. That doesn't speak to him genuinely being into you, and that situation is doomed to fail. So you don't want that to be the case. You got to recognize if you got to fight hard to be in this man's life, then he doesn't need to be in yours. All right? If you, of course, address it, but if it's not corrected, nah, there's nothing to do here. We just got to keep it moving because, again, he's just not that into you. All right, so I said I had an extra message for you, and here's what it is. As I mentioned before, the two big reasons why the man doesn't do these things, or he seems detached, or he doesn't ask for your number, all these things, is either because he's just not that interested, or he cannot act on that interest. The reason why I want to highlight the he can't act on that interest is because, one, I see so many people internalize rejection, internalize when someone is not receptive to them or open to getting to know them, not realizing that sometimes the issue is as simple as they can't. They can't. I mean, there's various reasons. Whether they just don't like you, they're not attracted to you, or they're with someone else, we've got to understand that we won't always know the answer. We have to stop then taking it so personally that now we allow it to impact us in this negative way. It is what it is. You won't like everyone won't like you. It's the way life flows. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? And again, the more we can accept that, the less we will find ourselves discouraged and depressed and all these things, because this person did not want us. They're not designed for us. They don't fit our life. We don't fit them. Even if it's what you wanted, it's not what's best for you. So you've got to understand that as you move forward. Now, listen, I feel the need to say, if all you're getting in life is rejection, then you do have to look at yourself in the mirror. I'm not saying that to hurt your feelings. I'm saying that to empower you to do what you need to do to start getting better results. But we don't internalize it in a way that now we look poorly upon ourselves, or we walk in this negative energy. We use it to say, okay, you know what? Maybe I can go back to the drawing board and let's see what adjustments I can make. Let's see what things I can improve. Let's make sure I'm presenting my best self so I can receive the person who is best for me. Hey, thank you for watching this video. Be sure to check this one out right here, and I'll see you there. So I think we can all agree, or I think we're all aware, that men are very visual, right? And a lot of men want to feel physically attracted to their partner.